Seven Swords is a game for 2 players. One player plays as samurai and the other one plays as bandit. The game board is a village that the samurai has to defend and the bandit has to try to come into and steal the food and the storehouses and destroy the storehouses. At the beginning of the game, the samurai player sets in the game board the food tokens, face it down, the storehouse tokens, the villagers' houses, and the palisade, all face down so the bandit player doesn't know the value. Also, the bows tokens. The samurai player has the 7 samurais to play, the 7 cards, and its miniature to play in the game board. Samurais has defense, combat, movement, and leadership. The bandit player plays with these tokens. There are normal bandits, archers, and mounted bandits, and they have defense, attack, and movement. The game has 18 turns, and the winner is the one who gets more victory points when the food, stealing the supply tokens, or destroying the storehouse. Divided in 7 sectors with letters, for example G, F, D. Each sector has a value. A, G, and F sector is 5, D and E is 6, and B and C is 7. They are like the bandit's action cards. The A, G, for example, at the beginning of his game, at the beginning of his turn, he discards one of these cards to get so many action points as the number of the card. But in the turns when the yellow mark, that he discards 2 cards instead of 1. For example, in the first turn, the bandit player discards 2 cards with a value of 5 and 6. This is the side that the samurai has to be. It never can know the letter of the sector the bandit is discarding. For example, he discards now the A and the D sector cards. Since he discards this one, he gets 11 action to play, and he used this counter to know how many action he has to play with. In the next turn, he discards another card, this time with the value 7. So he has 7 action to play. For example, in the first turn, I discard this card, 7 and 6, so I have 30 points. With my 50 action points, I can put in game bandits. The normal bandit costs 1 action point, the archer 2 action points, and the mounted bandit 3 action points. I put them on the deployment squares. There are 6 in the village. So, for example, I use 1 action and play 1 normal bandit, another 2 actions and play an archer, 3 actions for a mounted bandit, and 1 action more to play another bandit. I can put them in any deployment square, but if the deployment square is full, for example this, I can put another one until there is an empty square. The bandit players can also move the bandits. For example, if this bandit is into the village, per its action point I use in it, it can move 2 squares because it has a movement factor of 2. So if I use 1 action, it moves 2 squares. 1, 2. It must move by adjacent squares. It can jump into another square. And I can move as many times as I wish. For example, I want to move it again, so another action, 1, 2, another action, 1, 2, and so on. The value of movement is the maximum square he can move. So, but if you don't have to move the 2 squares if you don't want, imagine that you are here and you want to stay here, you can only move 1, but you use your action as normal. The bandits can pass through an armored palisade. To do it, we reveal the value of the palisade. Its palisade has different difficulty crossing value, is this one. So since with this bandit I have 2 movement points per action I use in it, I need 1 because the difficulty crossing of the palisade, and 1 to put in the first village square. Once he hits in the village, he can move as normal. You can use some actions to move a bandit. For example, this one has only 1 movement point per action, so it can pass through because it can stay here. So I need to wait 2 actions to put it in the first village. The bandit tokens can also attack. I attack the palisades with this bandit. To play it, I need 1 die, and the combat is the combat value plus the value of the die, and I have to get a number equal or higher than the defense of the palisade. I use 1 action to attack when this one. I roll the dice. I get a 5, so 5 minus 2 is 3. That is higher than the palisade, so I destroy it. It is set beside the square for it. So now the bandits can come in without any penalty. Once I use 1 bandit to attack, I turn it over to indicate that he can play anymore till my next round. Bandit can attack also different tokens on the game board. For example, we will attack this storehouse token. I will use a veteran mounted bandit and a normal bandit. I will use 2 actions to attack with them. I take 1 dice for each token I attacking with. It must attack when the village square that has this mark only. So now I have to get the dice results plus the combat value. I get a number equal or higher than 10, that is the defense of this storehouse token. So I roll the dice. Oh, I have only 5, so I don't get it. But let's imagine that I have, for example, 12, and I win the fight. So immediately I get this storehouse token for me, and at the end of the game I will add 3 victory points to my count. Bandits can also attack the supply tokens, so I use a mounted bandit and a normal bandit to attack this supply token. It must to be also in the market squares. So I take 2 dice since I'm attacking with 2 tokens, and it's the same. Well, if I get it, I reveal the victory points, and this time I turn over because they attack. And in my next round, I must to take the token and move to get it out of the village. To move with a supply token on it, a bandit must use 2 actions to move its value. For example, if I want to move to village square, I need 2 actions instead of 1, because I have the supply token on it. For example, 1, 2 is 2 actions. A bandit player can also play with archers at distance. To know its attack value, you have to see the combat value minus the number of the squares between the archer and the target. In this case, minus 2. So if I want to attack this storehouse token with these 3 bandits, I need 3 dice and the value 2. Minus 2 is 3, minus 2 is 1, the attack value it's 1. I don't win. I use 3 actions because I attack with 3 tokens and I turn them over. Bandit can also attack samurais. I will use, for example, normal bandit here. It must be in adjacent squares here, or and using an archer it can be at distance. So in this case I am attacking with 3 of them. I use 3 actions to play them and I get 13 minus 2 because the distance of the archer is 11, minus 2, 9, and since the defense of the samurai is 5, I win. So I damage him and I turn the bandits over.